Hi, I'm Peter Trout, and with me on the couch today is Dr. Peter Graham from the Faculty of the Built Environment. Peter, your work focuses on sustainability in buildings, and you're looking at the greenhouse gas emissions that come from the construction sector and from buildings each year. Can you tell me a bit about the problem globally in terms of how much greenhouse gas the construction sector is responsible for each year?
The construction sector internationally is responsible for about 30 to 40% of our global emissions each year. Buildings themselves consume up to 30% of all energy each year in the world, 25% of all water, up to 40% of all materials. The magnitude of the industry, the impact of the industry, I should say, on climate change is the most significant in terms of all industrial sectors.
That's the situation now. What's the outlook for emissions from the construction sector into the future as our global populations become increasingly urbanised?
Well, we could say that the problem is immense. We're looking at a global emergency, essentially. If you look at countries like China and India, which are adding the equivalent of our building stock in Australia each year as new construction, the emission signature from cities globally is going to increase rapidly. At the same time, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is telling us we have to reduce our emissions by between 50 to 85% in the next 15 years. The only way countries are going to be able to achieve that is to radically improve the energy efficiency of buildings and, by extension, the energy efficiency of cities, and switch to non-fossil fuel-based energy and diversified energy. If we don't do that, we're not going to be able to avoid the worst-case scenarios of climate change.
You've been working in Paris for the last 2 years with the UN's SBCI. Can you tell us what that body is and what work they're doing?
Sure. Well, SBCI stands for the Sustainable Buildings and Climate Change Initiative, and it's a program which runs through the United Nations Environment Program. It's a partnership between global companies worldwide, the public sector, governments, and also government-based research organisations in partnership with the UN. And the idea is to provide a common platform for reaching consensus on important issues that will help mainstream sustainable buildings in general, and in particular help the industry to rapidly reduce its greenhouse gas emissions. The other component of this is to provide the industry with a voice at the table of the climate change negotiations which are going on this year, and which will, we hope, conclude in a new agreement on reducing greenhouse gas emissions in Copenhagen in December. The SBCI has been working to develop a set of global guidelines which set out the core issues that need to be considered by the building industry in order to make a contribution to sustainable development. And we have also been working with our members and partners to develop common metrics, common ways of measuring greenhouse gas emissions from the building sector. Now, this is really important because the way we need to provide incentives for the building industry to renovate and improve energy efficiency in buildings. A key way of doing that is to enable the industry to trade in the emissions reduced by investing in energy efficiency. In order to do that, you have to be able to measure the greenhouse gas emissions that building projects or built environments actually produce. Step one, it's called a baseline. And then you have to be able to account for the difference that the that the energy efficiency renovations make. And so we're working on metrics, ways of being able to calculate the emissions from buildings to enable things like carbon trading.
The faculty is well placed to provide insight into what it takes to create sustainable cities. Can you tell us about the work that is being done within FBE?
Well, the Faculty of the Built Environment is a multidisciplinary faculty and basically has carriage for educating all of the professions that shape and operate the built environment. The faculty has a research centre called the City Futures Research Centre, which is focusing on providing interdisciplinary capacity to solve these tricky problems like climate change, and particularly looking at the urban scale. We have research programs running which are looking at the actual performance of neighbourhoods in terms of energy consumption, water consumption and so on, policy analysis to see what policies are working to improve environmental conditions in cities and which aren't. And now with the work that I've been doing for UNEP and the capacity in looking at building performance and from using globally consistent frameworks, we're in a position now to really offer a range of strategic research looking at the performance of the building sector from everything from the level of the building through to the level of the neighbourhood through to the level of cities. We're currently developing a series of computer models which will allow us to maintain a database of the performance of cities so that we can analyse in the future the influence of building design, building occupancy, neighbourhood design and so forth on key issues such as climate change.
Thanks very much, Peter.
It's a pleasure.